famous pastime of Damodar, where Krishna's mother Yashoda ties him up with ropes to grinding mortar. Happens. Okay, just go back.
All right. So like we were describing that Yashoda, so Krishna is known as the butter thief, right? So and he steals butter, and this one time catches him, and so the whole pastime actually unfolds, and we'll go into a lot of detail with this pastime. But Mother Yashoda tries to tie Krishna up with to the grinding mortar, and in the process, she keeps finding that every time she binds his waist, the ropes actually become 2 inches too short. And so this pastime goes on, and it just keeps unfolding, where finally Krishna actually agrees to be bound. So the word Damodar actually means one who is bound by the ropes of Mother Yashoda, but the ropes are actually the ropes of love. And so this is a very, very sweet pastime. And so what we will do is we'll narrate this pastime, and we'll stop at different points where we'll chant the Hare Krishna mantra. We'll do a little kirtan. So it's kind of like a lila kirtan. And we are probably not going to be able to finish this pastime today. So we'll continue this pastime next Friday. And incidentally, Friday is also the Deepavali. So this pastime actually happened on Deepavali day. So we'll start with a little kirtan. So Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Krishna, Bhutale, Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami, Niti Namine.
Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Krishna. Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami
Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Devi Shesha Shunyavadi Ashwatya Deshikarine.
Namaste Saraswati
Hare Krishna, we'll start. No, no, no. Just why don't you start? Just give us a minute.
Presenting Hong Sheng of the
Hare Krishna, everybody.
Hare Krishna.
Please pray for, please pray for me. Damodar lila. So it was the third day of Deepavali. Festivities had already begun with the Brajbasis cleansing their homes to receive Goddess Lakshmi, decorating doorways with colorful designs and gracing windowsills with dancing ghee lamps. So it's the upcoming Diwali, the festival of lights. It's a very special time. And right before this festival, the entire houses, all the houses, they're cleansed and decorated with beautiful rangoli or colorful designs, mandalas, and beautiful candles, diyas are actually lit. And that's why we have these candles here to welcome this wonderful festival. And so on this very auspicious day, Mother Yashoda lay in bed with her son. Waking, she looked towards her child, his lotus eyes closed in sleep, and affectionately whispered, "My blue lotus," and went off to sleep. The demigods marveled to see the controller of numberless universes resting in the arms of his mother. In the meanwhile, a fresh dawn breeze from the village below blew to rouse Yashoda Devi from her deep slumber and whispered to her, "O Queen, whose good fortune is without limits, can you rest in the arms of the goddess of sleep while the cause of creation stirs by your side? Arise." Hearing this appeal, her bodily hairs erect in ecstasy, she awoke. Seeing that her child was deep in slumber, she carefully raised herself. Then, as if drawn by a magnet, bent over to gently kiss her son's cheek. Although he did not sit in his sleep, Krishna felt the indescribable touch of love personified and caused waves of ecstasy course through his body and mind. He sighed, happy, and sank deeply into his pillow. Like a stately swan, Yashoda rose from her bed and went to her bath chambers to finish her morning duties. Restless for the service of her son, Yashoda cut short her own grooming and hurried into the courtyard where 3 golden churns of milk were waiting. So we see here in this beautiful description how personal and how beautiful Mother Yashoda is, and her lovely slumber where she's constantly absorbed in this ecstasy of love for her dearmost son.
Nan Maharaj, Krishna's father, was the master of 900,000 cows. In some places it is said that he had unlimited number of cows, especially when Krishna goes out with his cowherd boyfriends to the forest. It is described in Chaitanya Charitamrita that there is no counting. It goes to billions and trillions and pentallions of cows. So these numbers actually are just some indication. Of these, 5 or 7 were as rare as a horse with a black ear. because of the superlative quality of their milk, creamy, tasty, and aromatic. Padma Gandhi was one such cow, famed throughout Braja because her milk shared the aroma of red lotus. It was natural for the queen to supply the best of everything to her beloved Krishna. But there was another reason too. She wanted to wean him off this terrible habit of stealing. She thought to herself, somehow my son has become addicted to stealing the milk produce of our neighbors. To break this habit, I must entice him by providing butter, which is far superior to that which he can get elsewhere. So she took it upon herself to churn the yogurt and also watch the stove. She thought, these girls cannot be trusted. They regularly burn the milk. Tightening her garments, Yashoda poured the milk into a large pot on the stove. From the yogurt that was prepared the previous day, she spooned the cream into a churn near the door of the bedchamber. From there, she would be able to see Krishna on the bed as well as the boiling milk on the stove. The maid servants ignited the sandalwood fire to boil the milk, and Mother Yashoda began to churn the yogurt.
So, I just was thinking that as we are hearing these very, very intimate and very confidential pastimes, one way to approach them is to just, maybe if you so desire, to close your eyes and just really try to hear through the ears of the heart, and it's a meditation. It's a lila meditation.
As the maid servants all left for the Deepavali preparations, she felt pleased to be alone with her son for a change. She whispered, if one is decorated with a celestial blue lotus, no other ornament is needed. Thinking like that, she gradually sank into the quicksand of Krishna Kirtan.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare So seated on her bejeweled chowki, Mother Yashoda took up the rope, looped around the churning rod, and began to pull. Swish, swish, right arm, left arm, swish, swish. The silken rope was entwined with golden silken thread, and the pot was set with stones and painted with charming designs. It had to be special for Krishna. Yashoda continued to churn, occasionally stealing a glance at her son. She was slender, and the churning required great strength. I don't know if you've seen women in India in the villages, they churn this yogurt, and it requires a lot of strength. Her strength was neither physical nor mystical. It was the force of her limitless love. The churn was happy to make butter for her. But Mother Yashoda would have none of that. So this is another special quality of the spiritual realm, that everything there is fully conscious. So the churn is also fully conscious. In the material world, a churn would be made of wood, right? And it would not have any awareness. But in the spiritual world, the churn is actually a dearmost devotee, a servant of Krishna, and is fully conscious. So it was happy to do this service. So the churn said to Mother Yashoda, "Oh Queen, let me do this, and you just sing of your son." So maternal love, Mother Yashoda's heart was filled with this love, and she said, "Then how will I manifest in loving service to Krishna?" So then the churn said, "You just hold the rope lightly, and I will do the rest." Yashoda said, "That will not do. My heart would not be satisfied." And then it chastised the churn a little bit and said, "Behave, churn. Let me flow unhindered through your being." So this is the mood of a devotee, that even though Mother Yashoda didn't really have to do this work, really, this is hard work for her, but she still wanted to do this because this service, this work was actually an expression of her love for Krishna. As Mother Yashoda continued, her whole body shook, and with it, her bountiful regal ornaments. Love milk started to flow from her breast. The combined sound of her shaking ornaments was like a tinkling of dozens of tiny bells. A kinkini dhwani, like the bells the pujaris use to wake deities in the early morning. And Krishna, the fountainhead of all deities, heard that tinkling and her singing as a call to rise. So in the temples, when we have to wake up the deity of Krishna, then a bell is rung. So when Mother Yashoda is churning this yogurt, she has these tiny bells in her ornaments, and they make this sound of little like bells that the pujaris use to wake up the deities in the morning. And so when Krishna hears that, he thinks that it's time to wake up. And as she churned, she fell into a deep meditation on Krishna's pastimes of stealing butter, breaking pots, playing in the courtyard, killing Putana, Trinavarta, Shaktasura, and started singing them. So her whole process, her whole service of churning this milk is her meditation. So she gets into this mood where she is constantly meditating on all of these pastimes, and in that ecstasy of that deep meditation, she actually starts to sing those beautiful pastimes. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. While she sang, she forgot whether Krishna was in his bed or in her thoughts. So intense was her meditation. Krishna was enchanted by her intense love, and his desire to drink her breast milk became intolerable for him. He thought, I must get up, stop her churning, and drink the milk from her breast. I must. The Manohar Laddu in the crystal container on the nightstand tempted Krishna, saying, O little boy, if you are hungry, eat me. And the Khanda next to the Laddu said, no, eat me first. But Krishna's yearning arose from the special affection he cherished for his mother. In ecstasy, he cried, Mother, Mother. Upon hearing Krishna calling out, Yashoda came out of her samadhi and said, O my beloved son, you are awake? How wonderful. While still pulling the churning rope, swish, swish. But Krishna didn't want any more swish, swish. No, stop, stop, mother. Do not churn. How charming he is, she thought.
Krishna tugged again at the churning rope. Putting the rope down, Yashoda raised Krishna to her lap. She marveled at his beauty as she started to nurse him. She kissed his sapphire blue cheeks and cried, Poor thing, my little darling, you must be hungry after sleeping for so long. Krishna replied, I'm very hungry and I'm very angry. The sound of Krishna's voice created an echo like that of Vedic mantras in her ears. Why are you angry, my dear? Krishna. So then Krishna says, because you are churning butter instead of giving me your milk. Yashoda, are you very angry with me? Krishna, had you not stopped churning, I would have broken the churn. Yashoda, oh dear, but darling, the butter is also meant for you. Krishna, that may be, but the butter is for later, and I'm hungry now. So this is actually another quality of Krishna, right? We've actually discussed how Krishna is the source of, he's a condensed form of all bliss and all love. And so even when he steals, or when he gets angry, or when he throws a tantrum, everything brings about the greatest happiness and the greatest bliss for his dearmost devotees. And it's all to enhance actually the pleasure of the devotees. When Mother Yashoda sees that, she marvels at the cleverness of the little boy. He's only 3 and he speaks like an adult. All of a sudden, there was an emergency. Krishna's milk is boiling over. While Krishna was drinking the breast milk, the milk in the pot hot. If Krishna satisfies his hunger with Yashoda's milk, then he won't drink me. It is better for me to commit suicide by boiling over and jump into the fire. And so it started to boil over. So it's a land that is completely inconceivable. That, like we said, even the milk is fully conscious. So Krishna reeled. Seeing this, Mother Yashoda acted quickly. Swiftly lifting Krishna from her lap, placed him on the floor. She rose quickly to her feet and ran towards the boiling milk. My dear, watch the churning pot while I look after your milk. I will only be a moment. Krishna reeled in shock. Feeling hungry and neglected, he bit his lower lip and stamped his feet in anger. After fasting all night, here he was teased with a few drops of milk, and abruptly deprived of more. Anger arose within him, and he began to growl like a lion cub. The sound was not accidental. The presiding deity of parental love is Nrsingadev, and the half-lion lord was voicing his displeasure in no uncertain terms. So all of these different emotions, all these different relationships that we experience here, the source of all of that is Krishna. The difference is that when Krishna exhibits these different emotions, then it is all auspicious. As Sukha, Sari, and other birds watched Krishna's anger, they debated whether Mother Yashoda's behavior was justified. In the end, they concluded that sometimes, confronted with 2 equal things, one must attend to one at the cost of the other. For a great devotee like Queen Yashoda, the proper intuition on how to make the right decision is given to her by the Lord in her heart. How then can she be at fault? So it's an interesting point here because, the way pure bhakti is described, right? It is without any desires, without any tinge of jnana and karma, and with the sole purpose of pleasing Krishna. So the intention of that work, that service is the pleasure of Krishna. And so we see here that Mother Yashoda's intention was only and solely for the pleasure of Krishna. And that's why it is pure bhakti, even though at this point we see that Krishna is not happy, right? He's exhibiting some anger. But Mother Yashoda is not at fault because it is done, and ultimately it is to facilitate this pastime and to bring Krishna the greatest joy and greatest pleasure. Yeah. So we'll read a little bit from this book here. Yeah. 121 to 122.
In the way that a child's appetite for sweets increases with every bite, and in the way that a drunkard desires more wine with every sip, So Krishna's absorption in his pastime intensified with each unfolding scene. For a moment, Krishna's aggrieved reaction to being denied his mother's breast milk was subdued by wonder at her service attitude. He watched transfixed as Yashoda Devi ran into the kitchen and so revealed the ultimate picture of maternal love. It was an image that Krishna secreted in the core of his heart, and one that disclosed a truth known to exceptionally qualified devotees. To serve Krishna, devotees would agree to be separated from him. And this is the philosophy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to serve Krishna in separation. It's called Vipralamba. And this is the mood that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to teach all of us, this mood of separation and service, or service in separation. Only because it pleased him would Mother Yashoda let Krishna herd calves in the forest. Only because he wanted to deliver Vasudeva and Devaki would the Brajvasis allow him to go to Mathura. Only because they thought he wanted aristocratic girls would the gopis forgive his infidelity. While separation between lovers is generally painful, it was different with Krishna and the Brajvasis. When Krishna was distant from them, the Brajvasis externally behaved as if they had been poisoned. However, the internal reality, what the Brajvasis felt, was entirely different. While separation appeared devastating, it actually caused feelings of unprecedented bliss.
And so it was for Krishna. When he was in the forest, Krishna's heart yearned for his mother's touch. When he was in Mathura, Krishna would cry after the Brajavasis. And when he was sleeping beside Rukmini, he would call out Radha's name. At those times, Krishna's suffering was so extreme that it frightened his associates. Yet at the same time, within himself, Krishna felt unprecedented bliss. Overpowering heartache, intense longing, and unrelenting hope were catalysts that transformed his suffering into ecstasy. And that ecstasy was so unique that Krishna wondered, what is this mysterious poison that transforms into the sweetest bliss? It has been just like that now. After he had snuggled into Yashoda's embrace, Krishna had become both the victim of neglect and the beneficiary of bliss. It was an extraordinary experience, one that he continued to enjoy until his rebellious mind thought, she has left me for some milk. So we'll stop here. And Krishna's anger soared as he felt the great injustice done to him. Outraged, Krishna looked around for something upon which to vent his fury. I think we can stop here. As his eyes fell on the churn, he reached out to grasp the churning rod. But much as he tried, he couldn't raise the rod. He, by whose will alone devotees are freed from the three modes of nature, failed to sever three silken ropes that tied the rod to the churn. His attempt failed. Krishna's anger rose further. So we've been talking about the three modes of nature, right? And Krishna says that one who surrenders unto me can very easily overcome it. And yet he could not, so there are three modes, and the silken ropes were also three. Krishna was unable to actually sever them.
And I guess the other point is Krishna's anger. When we see devotees, they're because of bhakti, we become free from anger. But here, Krishna is becoming angry, and we have to understand that this anger is not generated by the mode of ignorance, but it is transcendental anger, which ultimately increases the pleasure of both Krishna and his devotees. when a conditioned living being becomes angry because of the mode of ignorance, it brings more and more suffering. But here, this anger increases the bliss. The Prabhupada says that everything originates from the spiritual world, Janmadhyasya Yatha. So all these emotions are there in the spiritual world. They're just meant to increase Krishna's pleasure.
Krishna saw some stones that he had collected the previous day. He picked up a small pointed stone and struck the bottom of the churn with its pointed edge. Once, twice, thrice. The churn cracked neatly into two, with just the slightest sound. Meanwhile, Mother Yashoda had removed the pot of milk and was fussing over the stove to lower its heat. Krishna glanced a guilty glance in her direction. Mother Yashoda called out, "Just a minute, darling, I shall be right there." The yogurt just flowed out of the pot. Krishna was very excited to see the delicious feast. As Krishna crawled through the churned butter, he reached the broken churn, but by that time all the contents had spilled onto the floor. Not a drop of uncontaminated butter remained. Feeling even greater anger, his chakora-like eyes brimming with tears, he thought, he had taken so much effort, risked so much, and yet was no better off than before. Angrily splashing the spilled yogurt here and there, determined to satisfy his hunger at all cost, Krishna resolved to raid the storeroom. And so it continues like this. And maybe we'll just pause here and continue this next week, because it gets more and more amazing. And when we are hearing these pastimes, which are very confidential, one always has to remember this is the same Krishna who speaks the Bhagavad Gita. And he's the same person who is discussed in the Upanishads as the greater than the greatest and the smaller than the smallest, and all the different ways in which the Upanishads and the Vedanta refer to that absolute truth. And so that Supreme Brahman, who everyone, all the yogis are trying to approach, and the scientists are trying to capture that unified field theory that they can put on their t-shirt, right? That absolute truth is simply playing like a little boy in the courtyard of Nanda and behaving like a little boy who wants to steal butter and get angry just because break pots,
do mischiefs.
So this is inconceivable, and only when we understand these pastimes through understanding his greatness and his absolute nature, then we can truly appreciate the inconceivable nature of these pastimes. Krishna is the proprietor. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhukta Aram Yagita Pasam, that I am the proprietor of everything, I'm the enjoyer of everything, right? That I am the best friend of everyone.
But I guess, although he declares himself as the enjoyer, but in the case of Krishna and Vrindavan, he becomes the enjoyer in one sense, and he becomes the thing that is possessed by his devotees. Krishna becomes the property of his devotees. So his devotees actually become his proprietor, although Krishna is the proprietor of everything. Out of this love, Krishna gives himself completely, and he is willing to be chastised by Mother Yashoda, and he actually will see that how he reacts to that chastisement. It is very heartwarming to see the Supreme Lord in this multidimensional way, because sometimes when we practice spiritual life, we feel that God is like a distant, far distant figure, much greater than us, and can we really have a relationship with him? But when we see all these activities Krishna does with his devotees, we can see how he is a God of relationships, and he wants to have this loving relationship with each one of us. So maybe take some reflection.
Yeah. Can you bring the computer close to us? So, can we maybe pull the chair close to the table? Okay. Okay.
Go ahead, share something that you touched your heart and you liked.
I thought it was interesting how Krishna like experiences anger. I guess it just gave me like a different perspective on like understanding anger within myself and like just being compassionate towards myself as well on the journey.
Yes, yes. And of course, like we said, all the emotions that we have, the reason we have them is because they are there in the cause, right? So, the reason why we experience what we experience, all the emotions, experiences, feelings, it's because Krishna has them. The difference is our emotions are, at this point, not pure. And Krishna's emotions are completely pure. Nice, Dominic. Yeah, this is, it's very, very difficult to actually understand these pastimes of Krishna.
I think what caught on my attention is the spiritual nature of the churn and the milk. I mean, it's something very difficult to perceive, very difficult to really think. But when you think a little deeper, and when you hear all these things, you feel, oh my God, how can even people, I mean, or not people, the things that we think and don't have sense, even they can express their sentiments and their love for the Supreme.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's the most amazing thing about the spiritual realm. Right?
It's inconceivable, like when you start thinking that milk is sentient, and that milk, when Krishna will drink, the milk will be digested, and what happens to that milk? But the milk is spiritual, so it can't disappear. So I guess the point is that everything in the spiritual world is inconceivable, and we cannot really fathom the spiritual world with our limited conditioned material intelligence.
I just remember when I was growing up, I used to read these little story books, and one particular book that I always remember that I used to love was, really used to fascinate me, was called The Enchanted Forest, and it had like the trees talked and everything was sentient and it was so beautiful, and I remember being so fascinated. And then of course when you hear Krishna's pastimes, everything in this land is actually enchanted, and it's sentient and alive and conscious. So really nice.
Can I ask a question? You said this was happened during Deepavali, but wasn't that a celebration when Rama returned from Ayodhya? The Deepavali, so this is like a crossover from different avatars?
There are so many pastimes that happen on the same day. So,
The churning of milk ocean happens on Deepavali.
yeah, so multiple pastimes. Anybody else? Tarini, see you.
Yeah, I was just thinking that how you were mentioning about that the boiling of milk, and even the milk has feelings of ecstasy. So how I was thinking that in the spiritual world, how it's such a broad-minded concept of like everything having, like every small thing they have feelings and emotions and they express. So so it's such a broad-minded thing, So I really I like that point. So there is no room for selfishness.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Eric, any reflections from you, thoughts from you?
I just had a question. What does it mean when we say that pastimes are confidential? Because here in Washington, confidential usually means, related to some sort of spying activities or something like that.
Yeah.
I guess confidential, there are many ways to understand confidential. Krishna's activities or pastimes in Vrindavan, they are not revealed in the regular Vedic scripture. They are not like the regular Vedas, Upanishad, even the Puranas. They don't really go so much into these special pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan, because the Vedas don't really have access to these. this very secret world of Krishna, which is Vrindavan. It is inaccessible to anybody. Even the highest yogis, they cannot really comprehend what this world of Vrindavan is and what is Krishna's relationship. Because Krishna's relationship, this intimate relationship, this intimate side of Krishna, where he cries for his devotees and he's like being chased by Mother Yashoda. I mean, people cannot really understand this. They may start really misunderstanding Krishna's nature and the nature of the Absolute. So Krishna hides this, his most intimate, just like we in our regular day-to-day life, the most intimate relationship we have with our near and dear ones. Not everybody knows about those relationships, right? And the exchanges that we have with our loved ones, they are just for our family, their family secret or whatever it is. So similarly, Krishna's most intimate nature, it's kind of hidden from the Vedas, from the regular scriptures and practitioners. Only when somebody becomes advanced in bhakti, or somebody who follows this path of bhakti, then they can access, or at least even try to understand them and accept these pastimes, and they can slowly enter into them. So that's why they are confidential. And many times, even when we hear about them, we may not understand them and may not be able to enter them unless we have bhakti in our heart. So this keeps these pastimes confidential from a casual onlooker or a casual practitioner or a yogi or somebody else who does not accept Krishna's this personal nature.
Krishna says that in the Bhagavad Gita, right? Janma karma chime divyam, that anyone who understands my appearance, my activities, and my birth, right? That person becomes eligible to go back to the spiritual realm. So, of course, anybody can know these stories, right? And hear them, but to understand them, to appreciate them, is a whole other, it's dependent on the purity of our heart. And so it's very, very special. And that's why these pastimes, even in our, like you were saying, even in the Vedas and Upanishads, these pastimes are never revealed. It's just kept as like a very, as something very precious and to be shared only with those that are intimate devotees. That's how it's confidential.
So the confidentiality is in the understanding of the significance of the pastimes.
Yes, and confidentiality is, and then the second part of the confidentiality is the eligibility of who can enter into them. So not everybody can enter into them, and that's how they're confidential.
But is there a promise that everyone can eventually enter into them once they acquire the proper level of understanding?
Absolutely.
Yes. Because everybody is eligible for bhakti, and that is the broadness of bhakti, and especially because of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who actually made this Krishna's this most intimate nature available to any common person, regardless of their qualifications. So by chanting of this Hare Krishna mantra and following the path of Lord Chaitanya, one can very quickly access this confidential side of Krishna, by Lord Chaitanya's grace. So therefore, everybody is eligible to get into, understand them and get into them.
And that's why we hear them. I heard such a beautiful point the other day that, we have to get, like, how do we get socialized? Like when we first come to, like, for example, we were born and raised in India. We came to America, right? And we started hearing and speaking the language and understanding the culture. And then, and then you live here and then you get socialized. And then you become comfortable, you start understanding the culture. So in the same way, when we hear these pastimes of the spiritual world, then we're actually getting socialized. We actually start learning how the spiritual world is and who the associates are and how, because that is our eternal home. That is the realm that we actually truly belong to. So by hearing these pastimes, one actually starts to develop this deep connection. So that's why lila or pastimes are a very important part of our practice. So we hear the philosophy, which we have been doing in the Bhagavad Gita, and we just wanted to give you a little experience of this lila, which is divine play, it's not ordinary. It's not that Krishna is, I mean, at one level, he's actually truly experiencing fear. But at the same time, we know that Krishna cannot, Krishna is fear himself is actually fearful of Krishna. So one has to understand things from the philosophical perspective, and yet there is something to be said about this divine play of the Supreme Absolute Truth, which is beyond human reason, understanding.
Anjana, I'm so happy to see you, Anjana Chaudhary. Thank you so much.
Oh, we missed you.
Yeah, most happy to see you tonight. Thank you for coming and making us all happy.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I wanted to say that.
Yeah, Amrita, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that it was very beautiful the way, Mother Yashoda thinks about Krishna in the sense like her relationship with him is personal because she's his mother, yet she realizes that he's the supreme, and she also, has love for him like a devotee. So the way she, thinks about him and she meditates, with thoughts of him is very beautiful. And I think like, just thinking about that, I wish that at some point, I can get to that point where, to that level where I have that personal relationship with Krishna, at the same time, realize who he is.
That's very nice, Amrita. It's very nice. Yes, and it's available to each one of us. That's what Lord Chaitanya came to give us. This is the gift of, if we want, we can have this most intimate, because generally in most places, including India and outside of India, a concept of God is actually a very distant figure, someone that we need to be afraid of, someone with whom we can have at best a relationship where we can just ask him to be our order supplier, and we say, please give me this, give me that, and he will take care of us. That is sort of the relationship that is generally thought of. But in this, Lord Chaitanya has come to give and offer us a love, a kind of love where we become the maintainer of God, right? And we can relate to God in such an intimate way, where it's described that Krishna just becomes like a plaything in the hands of the residents of Vrindavan, and the Vrindavan residents, they make Krishna dance literally to their tune. So they, Krishna says, oh, I really want to have some buttermilk. And the gopis, they'll say, okay, Krishna, you dance, and then we'll give you some. And then Krishna will dance to their tune, and then they'll say, okay, here, you can have a little bit of buttermilk. And that's why sometimes he has to go and steal them, because they don't give him buttermilk just so easily. So then he goes around, breaks pots and steals. So it's a realm of joy and fun. And,
and the gopis, they eagerly wait that, oh, today Krishna will come and steal from my house. The day Krishna does not steal from their house, they actually get upset that Krishna did not steal from my house. So they will create all kind of tricks that today Krishna should come to my house and steal. And yet when he steals, then they will go and complain to Mother Yashoda that your Lala, he has stolen milk and yogurt from my house. What can you do? You should chastise him. So this is all the depth of all spiritual emotions, they come out in relationship with Krishna.
Actually, we think that all conspiracies and all drama happens here, right? We go on CNN and we watch so much drama happening even right now, and we think, oh, this is the land of drama. But actually, the spiritual realm is the real realm of drama. It's all kinds of conspiracies,
all kinds of conniving, all kinds of.
But it's all done for Krishna's pleasure.
And the pleasure of his devotees.
Pleasure of his devotees. Yeah.
Anjana, you started saying something, and then. Anybody else wants to make any reflection? Shweta?
One thing I was able to relate to was like, and I thought it was really sweet, like when Krishna gets angry with his mother, like we get angry with the person whom we love the most, and we think we have a right on her. So like, it happens with us also, like we get angry with our mother the most. So yeah, it was really sweet.
Shama Bhakti, any thoughts from you? Madananda.
No, it was very beautiful, and I love this tune which you sang. It is one of my favorite tune. And yeah, I was just thinking that there is so much rasa in Krishna's pastimes, and that's why he is Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's why, you know, Krishna, no other incarnation is like Krishna. And every pastime gives him, you know, such beautiful names like you know, Damodar is such a beautiful name. When you say Damodar, you feel like, you know, so much sweetness comes from your tongue. And yeah, every other pastime gives him a special name. So yeah, I just love. Thank you for doing it. Thank you.
That's so nice, yeah. Prabhupada said that we should read the Krishna book before going to sleep. That we will dream about Krishna and his pastimes.
Thank you. This is Anjana. And yeah, and I think now we have every Friday, right?
Yes.
Okay, and this time.
Yes, same time.
Okay, that's good. Actually, I was having some time conflict if it is, you know, 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, and I prefer this time because my client is in California, and time zone I used to work till 6:37.
Oh, we're so happy. This is working out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anjana, Appa. Oh, you know each other.
Tapas.
Yeah, Tapas, I know, yeah. Very well, yeah.
All partners in crime.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I saw Tapas after a long time, yeah.
He ran away from here.
Yes, he ran away from here. We couldn't catch him.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
How you guys doing? So you know, as we were listening, you know, the story of Krishna and Mother Yashoda, and the whole thing with the milk kind of reminded us of our newborn son Eli, and how he like you know, Ashley's like having like on the tail ends of breastfeeding him, and he's like getting like mad, you know, because he's like on the feeding stage. You know, it just reminded me of that story because as you were telling it, I kind of had a flash of when he was first born. And when he was first born, he had this look in his eyes, like it was like where am I? Like we kind of got the sense that he kind of came into this lifetime like it was like he was rolling down a mountain or something like that. And we kind of got a flash into one of our past lifetimes, and he was here, and we could kind of see it on his face when he was first born. So it reminded me of that, how, you know, we were kind of talking about it with a lot of the children, how, you know, we talk about how they have certain insights on things, and we're like, you know, well, you already know, we can kind of tell that you already know exactly what we're talking about, because sometimes they'll be listening in when we're on these calls and on these chats and on these lives and stuff, and like Manny said something to us interesting earlier, but it's kind of like the same thing with Krishna. Krishna's you know, in its experience as an infant, you know, and it's kind of almost like he's it is like a play, like he's playing, you know, an infant, you know, when he's the Supreme Personality, you know, he knows all that is and never will be, you know, he knows all this stuff, but he's, you know, he's sort of playing this this part for that moment. And we even the other day we watched the animated movie on the Ramayana, and Rama's teacher was talking about what they were kind of reflecting on him going to bless one of the sage's wives who had a curse put on her, and it said in there that he was, you know, he acted like he didn't know what he was doing, you know. So it's we kind of get the same sense when we're listening to this story about Krishna. It's very interesting.
Yeah, there's so many flavors of this rasa Krishna exchanges with every devotee. Krishna has a special flavor of relationship. There are trillions and trillions of countless living entities, and with each living entity, Krishna enjoys a special rasa. So that's so amazing that Krishna can offer that to each one of us. So thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank
So
you
we'll
all.
see.
I have a small request, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Just last request. I mean, this request is for everyone in this group. I mean, can we all dedicate, when we chant tomorrow, can we dedicate one round of our chanting for Mataji's good health? I mean, that is my sincere request for everyone.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.